Hello folks, it's time for another episode of The Real Man. Now last time we were here, we delved into some spooky fun times, which is mostly what I do anyway now that I think about it, but no need to worry because this week we're going to be taking a break from all the murder and mayhem and I'm going to try to bring you some Yuletide entertainment. I hope. All your Halloween decorations have been packed away for the time being, let's focus on the next big holiday, Christmas. The magical time of year where we decorate our homes with a Christmas tree, wrap presents for friends and loved ones, make some good food, turn our front yards into a lighting display, and await the arrival of a wonderfully jolly fellow by the name of Santa Claus, who you have to lure out of your chimney with baked goods like he's a raccoon. But it's also the time of year to watch movies that evoke the spirit of the Christmas season. Now there's untold amounts of classics that you, the audience, probably watch around this time of year, but I decided I wanted to take this year to show you 6 films from the Real Man video library that I think are pretty decent for seasonal watching. Now some of them you may have seen before, others maybe a little more unconventional. So let's get this holiday train rolling. Definitely among one of the best unconventional Christmas movies in my humble opinion. Directed by the late Ted Demme, The Ref takes place in the Connecticut town of Old Baybrook. It's Christmas Eve and married couple Lloyd and Caroline are on the verge of divorce thanks to their constant bickering. However, they get a major dose of reality and tough love when they're taken hostage by Gus, a very ill-tempered burglar who's trying to get out of town before a 10 p.m. curfew goes into effect. However, the situation gets even more complicated with the imminent arrival of Lloyd and Caroline's extended family for Christmas dinner. So Gus is forced to pretend to be their marriage counselor so they can pull one over on the relatives and so he can get out of Dodge and maybe so they can get their marriage back on track. Now, like I said before, this movie is extremely unconventional. I mean, it's loaded with F-bombs and profanity-filled rants that are delivered beautifully, as always, by Denis Leary. But I think it's very special because it does something that not a lot of Christmas movies do anymore. It shows that Christmas time is not only the time of year to be kind to your fellow man or be charitable or just be a better person, it's also a time for reflection and healing. However, there is one little dark cloud over this movie that I think might ruin it for some people. The second male lead character, Lloyd, is played by Kevin Spacey. I know, the man's very name has become a hot button topic of late, and very rightfully so. But you have to take into account, he's not the only person that's in this movie. I mean, it also has Denis Leary, Judy Davis, Raymond J. Barry, J.K. Simmons, Christine Baranski, and B.D. Wong, and many, many other people. And they do such a great job and deserve recognition for it. And I don't think it's fair to hold one casting choice against them. Now this is a choice of Christmas movie that's very on the nose thanks to the title alone, but it's one that's also very near and dear to my heart. Now it was produced by Alexander and Elias Salkind, the father-son duo who famously brought Superman to the big screen in 1978. It was directed by Jeannot Swark, who made films like Somewhere in Time and Jaws 2. It was written by a man named David Newman, whose writing credits include Superman's 1 and 2 and the Roger Moore James Bond epic Moonraker. Now, it stars John Lithgow, Dudley Moore, and David Huddleston as the title character. The first half of the story takes place somewhere within the, I would say like 1400s or so, but I could be wrong. Now, it's about a man named CLAUS and his wife Anya, an elderly couple who have no children of their own, who every Christmas Eve go out in their sleigh that's pulled by their 2 reindeer, Donner and Blitzen, and they deliver handmade gifts to all the children of the local villages. Well, one night on one of these trips, they end up getting caught in a blizzard and very nearly die, but they are miraculously rescued at the last second by a race of magical beings called the Vendicum, or elves, as you might call them. They're transported to the North Pole, where it's a haven of just pure joy and happiness. And after basically the gang gets a warm welcome from all the elves, CLAUS is taken aside by the Ancient One, who's sort of the oldest of the elves, and he's informed of a prophecy that was foretold very long ago about the coming of a very kind and benevolent person who would bring joy and happiness back to the children of the world, and also just become the ultimate symbol of goodwill and hope. Well, CLAUS doesn't shirk off responsibility. He embraces his destiny. He takes command of a group of flying reindeer. He puts on a very fitting costume for him, and he adopts the brand new name of Santa Claus. Now, as the centuries go by, Santa's legend grows with each happy child that gets a gift from him, and we see certain elements of the Santa Claus legend take form. Well, then the movie jumps ahead to 1985, where Santa ends up encountering two children who are really in desperate need of a positive father figure in their life, but he also faces a threat to Christmas itself. And it comes in the form of Patch, a very well-meaning but wayward elf that gets duped by a greedy toy manufacturer into making a sensational holiday gift that could very well render the notion of Santa Claus obsolete. Now, when you really think about it long and hard, Santa Claus and Christmas go together like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, which is why this epic event movie is the perfect must-watch for the holiday season. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is an undisputed classic in terms of literature and Christmas stories. Now, Hollywood has done countless versions of it over the years with varying degrees of success. But I believe this particular one, Scrooged, by director Richard Donner and starring Bill Murray, is probably one of the most original. Reason being is it stays true enough to the tone of the original story, but it's also brave enough to take risks and have a little fun with it. Now, the story revolves around Frank Cross. He's the president of a television network called IBC, and the perfect 20th century interpretation of Ebenezer Scrooge. Now, it's around Christmas Eve, and the network's preparing for a live televised broadcast version of A Christmas Carol. And Frank's trying to use the holiday season as much as he can to drum up awareness and, increase possible ratings for it, while taking advantage and mistreating his overworked and underappreciated employees. But then one night, he gets a timely visit from his long-dead mentor who tells him the truth. Unless he can change his ways, he's on the fast track to eternal damnation. However, Frank's a pretty tough nut to crack, so on Christmas Eve, he gets sent on one hell of an emotional roller coaster ride by three quirky ghosts. There's a cranky New York cab driver who takes him on a road trip of the past. There's a sadomasochistic fairy who takes him on an extended tour of his present. And then there's a 7-foot giant with a television set for a head that shows him the dark future awaiting him. As the road to redemption is laid out before him, Frank will learn that a little bit of love can heal many old wounds and that the magic of Christmas can last all year round. Now, when this movie came out in 1988, it didn't really get that warm of a reception. Critics mostly said that Bill Murray was the only thing good about it and that it was too mean-spirited. Well, considering the movie's become something of a cult favorite over the years, I think that's just proof that sometimes the critics just don't always get it right. I mean, Bill Murray makes Frank Cross the ultimate prick, but also so lovable that you do care about what happens to him. I mean, he's kind of like the worst case scenario for Ebenezer Scrooge, because if this guy can change his ways at the end of the movie, then let's hope that anyone can change. Plus, I think the whole humor aspect of it makes it not so dark and bleak like some versions do. And plus, the design of the ghosts themselves is kind of a new and original idea. So overall, I would say that this is a pretty good must-watch because it's not a traditional version of A Christmas Carol. It's just very unique. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, starring Tom Hanks and based on the popular children's book, The Polar Express is a deeply emotional and heartfelt story that talks about the importance of Christmas to a child and also the importance and power of belief. Now, it centers around a little boy who has reached a crossroads. He is on the verge of ceasing to believe in Santa Claus. But then one magical Christmas Eve, he ends up going on an incredible journey to the North Pole, meets some new friends, and discovers how important it is to keep faith and belief alive. And he does it all while riding on an amazing otherworldly train called the Polar Express. Now, this is one of those performance capture movies. It's sort of a marriage between live action and animation. And while the technology is definitely brand new, Robert Zemeckis doesn't fail to strike that same emotional chord with audience members like he did with movies like Forrest Gump, Romancing the Stone, or even Back to the Future. Now, this movie, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's capable of making your heart melt and making you cry tears of joy. I know it certainly did it with me. All in all, another must-watch. Now, most kids in the 80s and 90s knew about character actor Jim Varney and his signature role, that of Ernest P. Worrell, the sweet and lovable redneck that started off as an advertising gimmick but became a movie star. I mean, seriously, Ernest was so popular that Jim Varney would come back on no less than 9 separate occasions to play the character, putting him in all kinds of ridiculous and crazy situations. Well, with his second film, Ernest Saves Christmas, he raises the stakes to a much epic level. Now, it's Christmas Eve. Santa Claus arrives in Florida for a very important mission. Ernest is a cab driver who's traveling around with a teenage runaway named Harmony, and they end up giving old St. Nick a lift. Well, through the course of their travels, Santa Claus explains to Ernest really the true secret of Christmas. Apparently, the magic of Christmas works like electricity in a battery. And every time there's a current raining Santa Claus, it gradually drains the battery, where eventually another Santa Claus has to be chosen in order to refill it. And that's why Santa's in town. He is trying to find his successor by 7 p.m. that night, or the magic of Christmas will permanently run dry. And Ernest, being the major super fan of Christmas that he is, decides to help Santa Claus. And this results in hilarity and hijinks aplenty. Now, this is a Christmas movie where there's really no, high level of emotion or whatnot. It's just fun. And if you're an Ernest fan, or you just want a Christmas movie that's just hilarious, I say go with this one. It's a definite must-watch. Don't ask me why this R-rated classic starring Bruce Willis is considered by many people to be a Christmas movie. It just is. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the story, let me just give you a brief rundown of it. It's Christmas Eve, and the hardworking employees of the LA branch of the Nakatomi Corporation are celebrating in style. But then the festivities get interrupted by a group of armed terrorists that are led by the ruthless Hans Gruber. And after killing their boss, he informs the terrified employees that him and his men will not hesitate to kill anyone else if they don't cooperate. Now, gradually, the LAPD and the FBI show up and surround the building, and Hans and his guys end up undergoing their true purpose, which is to pull off a daring robbery to steal $600 million and disappear. Unfortunately, Han and his boys have a pretty big problem, and that problem's name is John McClane. He's an off-duty New York detective who's been invited to the party by his estranged wife Holly so they can work things out. Well, as the situation gets more and more tense, John is going to have to fight his way through all these terrorists and take out Han so he can save his wife. But the task is definitely not going to be easy. He's outgunned, he's outnumbered, and the poor guy doesn't even have any shoes on. Now, this movie was considered a movie that redefined action movies and created a new breed of action hero, per se. It made Bruce Willis into the man he is today. But getting back to the point in hand, why do so many people consider an R-rated action movie a Christmas movie? I don't know if there's really any definite answer to that one. I mean, my theory is just because it takes what would really be a horrifying situation to go through on Christmas Eve, like a hostage situation, and it kind of makes it fun. More specifically, in the scene where John kills one of the terrorists and sends him down in an elevator with a Santa Claus hat on and a message painted on his shirt that says, "I now have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho." And honestly, it's one of those kind of movies that can be enjoyed any time of the year and on Christmas. A definite must watch. Well, that's all, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, share, and subscribe to be informed of new content as it comes out. Now, I'm hoping to be back with a brand new episode sometime after the holidays are over. Until then, thanks for watching, best wishes, and have a happy holiday.